Well, good morning, ladies. And
happy holidays.
Whatever others are watching, happy holidays. We had a brief little teaser go out about our Instigating Women and Friends episode today, being about health, wellness, lifestyle, medicine, plant-based, and whatever else we want to get into. But the overall context is that Liz and I have agreed that it doesn't quite make sense to wait till January 1st to focus on these important things. Frankly, I personally dig myself a really deep rut hole generally toward the end of December every year, and then have such regret December 31st making those resolutions. So I figured it might be a little easier just not to dig so deep and to start thinking about lifestyle medicine and who I want to be and how I want to be healthy in the new year, starting in December. So we are all blessed to have Leanne Mauriello with us today. I personally knew Leanne by working with her at Spectrum Health, which is a very successful health system in West Michigan, and learned a lot about all these things that I've just described. And yet I will fully admit I'm an absolute novice at this. So I'd like Leanne to introduce herself and talk a little bit about her program and a plant-based challenge that's coming up in January. Leanne.
Yeah, hi. Gwen, Liz, so happy to be here. And please know, even before I talk about my credentials in behavior change science, I'm also human. And there's no expectation I even have for myself of perfection as far as health behavior change. So let me just throw that out there, that I'm like everyone else with behavior I do really, and that I wish on an ongoing do better. So to throw that out there. And yeah, so my background is I am a behavior scientist. And what that really means is I focused my graduate school training when I got my PhD in health psychology, and really narrowed in on learning how best we can support making like meaningful change, right? So it always starts small, but being able to get big enough that you can actually make an impact on your own health, and then change that can last. And yeah, I had a phenomenal experience in graduate school and 12 years after graduate school to work with a pioneer in this field, James Prochaska, who developed a theory of behavior change called stages of change, which it's something that's very approachable. And I think we all kind of just take for granted right now. Like we're all in different stages of readiness, right? Like that doesn't sound so scientific, but in the late 1970s and 1980s, that's not how behavior change was approached. So anyway, I had a phenomenal opportunity, learned so much, and was invited 6 years ago to come to Spectrum Health and help to keep people healthy and add help to healthcare. And lifestyle medicine is really how we kind of, where the journey took us at Spectrum Health, and this opportunity to build out programming and a team that brings lifestyle to the forefront. So not instead of other medical care, not instead of taking medicine you might need to take, not instead of seeing your cardiologist or your primary care physician, but truly to complement and surround individuals with providers, physicians who are trained in lifestyle medicine. It is something you can become board certified in, with health coaches and dietitians and chefs on the team, and really empower individuals to make successful and lasting change. So like you mentioned, Gwen, going in, not change that just you kind of jumpstart in the new year and then it fades off, but how can we, all year long support individuals in keeping up those healthy behaviors?
Gwen mentioned that she and I have been talking about making some changes earlier so it doesn't feel so monumental, January 1st, which is, such an arbitrary date anyway. My husband and I recently, it's been about 3 weeks now, we've started trying to walk together 4 days a week and do push-ups and sit-ups 3 days. And we made it a few days, and then we both got head colds. And so it remains to be seen whether we're going to make it happen today. But in the model that you teach, what in your opinion is the hardest stage to get through in order to make a change go from being novel or baby steps to having lasting impact, because I think that's the thing that we're both pretty worried about it. And he's never really exercised, unless you count exercise as lifting a pint of beer to your mouth repeatedly over several hours while watching European football.
Yeah. Well, even though that was, obviously this is like conversational and not planned, there's actually a term that answers the question, and it's called chronic contemplation. And what that means is that, again, there's all these not all these, there's like 5 different stages of readiness to change, but, some folks are in pre-contemplation, where it might be that they don't even know what they're doing isn't healthy or good for them, or it might be that they're resistant, or they're completely overwhelmed and have no idea. Like when you think about, smoking cigarettes, people know that's unhealthy, but they are very often in pre-contemplation because that's how I cope, or I've always done that, or whatever that might be. So there's actually a harder stage to get past is contemplation, which is where people recognize they desire to change, they want to change, and they are really struggling with kind of the how, and they keep putting it off. That's where the chronic contemplation, like, I'm going to get to that. And, whether that it's like one thing after the other is like, well, the holidays and New Year's resolutions in January, I'm going to get to that. And then, like you said, maybe then you're in a few days and you get a cold, or work gets busy, or something in life happens, and you just kind of keep, kicking the puck down the lane further. So that stage of desiring, wanting to change, but then actually getting to making the change can be the hardest to get over the hump. And like you said, you might be starting and doing small things here and there, but not consistently doing whatever your health behavior goal is on to get you to actually making the change stick.
And so in our discipline, right, we are coaches, and I recently became a certified health coach. What question would you suggest asking somebody in that chronic contemplation place, which is, honestly, Ian and I will go out to a bar and drink and talk about how we're going to exercise, and then not actually exercise, but we are definitely in that chronic contemplation phase. So what would you advise is a good thing for people to either ask themselves or try in that stage?
Yeah. So if you're, in that stage, I'm going to assume that you already kind of have your why, right? Like what good is going to come from this? So I'd say in that chronic contemplation is how are we going to do this? And not literally like, jumping ahead to like making the plan, but really when you ask yourself, how are we going to do this? Thinking through your typical day, right? Because a lot of times we can say like, well, we're going to do it first thing in the morning, but I'm just making this up, right? Liz, maybe you and your husband like are not morning people, but it's easy to say, we're going to do it every morning. Like, that's it. We're going to set the alarm. We're going to get up earlier. Or maybe you're going to say like, we're going to do it at the end of the workday. But when you really think about it, kids get in the way and sporting events and whatever else. So I'd say to really like think about how are we going to do this, but from the point of really like assessing your current state, so what are your typical routines and, your environment, like what do you have around you, whether that's in your mind, in your typical routines, in your house, your workplace, wherever you are, that either will help you or get in the way. So that can help you answer like, how are we going to do that? Like, well, first of all, what do we need to change to be able to actually be successful?
So can I weave in here that generally women, midlife women especially, are caregivers of children and parents. And so talk about a typical day and what's a typical day. And, when suddenly there's a parent need to go somewhere to see a physician, or a child need because they're home from school for the holidays, how do you balance your personal needs for this time versus all the other?
Yeah. Well, I'd say, even I can talk about myself personally. Like I'd say like, let's not put on ourselves trying to get a home run and everything. Right. So we're going to desire to get, enough sleep and exercise and eat healthy, but like, what are we really trying? Like what's most important right now? And, I guess I'll use my own, can I ask you use my own example, Gwen, to answer that question, is that like, I've come a long way in the last couple of years with my dietary pattern. So that's something I don't even have to think about. Like I've got that, but exercise has been like a staple in my life. It's how I like cope with stress and process. And as you just mentioned, Gwen, like that is something that can get difficult to fit in when there's caretaking and children. And I have like gotten off the wagon, but how I get back on is typically trying to incorporate it in something that's already in my day. So a little bit tougher, but you can bundle up in Michigan, but like, can I take a work call while moving? Can I squeeze it in that way? Because mom's not going to be available anyway, because I'm going to be on a call. And, you know, as a leader of a team, I am in a great position to be able to, even when it's nice out, say like, let's all do the team meeting. Like if you want, go out for a walk and let's all join. And not everyone does, which is absolutely fine, but you hear the background noise and that's okay. And the other way, what I try to do, but I'm not always successful, but I was successful this morning. And I know you don't even know that, Gwen, but is like, try to do it just for a little bit. And so this morning I did not have much time, but have, you know, a lot going on today. And I jumped on the treadmill for 20 minutes and that was all that I was able to fit in. But at least I didn't say like, I'll do it tonight. And then we often know what happens tonight. So I just try to squeeze it in something like, even if it's just standing and moving when you're doing something else, or try not to miss. There's this phrase like, don't miss more than a day. I mean, sometimes Liz, like if you have a cold or you really get sick, you miss more than a day, but just try not to miss, even if it's not doing it to perfection, even if it's just a few minutes, like just doing a few sit-ups and push-ups, like even if all you can manage are a couple, like you did it, right? Yeah. You didn't go 5 days without doing anything. And it just helps like keep the behavior there.
Yeah. I like how you said, and don't try to hit a home run and for every single thing that you've got on your plate, because that we talked a lot in our last episode about this pressure during the holidays, mostly on moms, to create this magical experience, you know, for our kids, but not just our kids, right? Like making cookies for the Teachers Association, which did not do, right? Getting the teachers' presents, getting your work friends' presents, all the things, right? Showing up for the whatever we celebrate with an amazing dish. And so like, can we give ourselves permission to let good enough, you know, be the thing instead of perfect? And I love that. I feel like I have to be reminded of everything you just said, because I have this vision in my mind of I'm going to go for a 4-mile run. And right. And I'm going to have that amazing endorphin rush that you get when you make time for that, versus doing mountain climbers while I'm watching Grace and Frankie, or, you know, right. Or like I had a dream last night that I was exercising at my son's cross country event. Cause you know, you drive forever. The whole thing takes 12 minutes, but you stand around waiting and you could actually just exercise during that time. I'm guessing exercise in your dreams doesn't really count.
But hopefully it makes you wake up inspired.
Well, maybe it would have, but instead I got woken up by my 13-year-old standing right facing, Mom, help. My telephone somehow ended up in a bowl of water in the middle of the night. This is an emergency.
Oh, no.
As if like a burglar broke into our house and put her cell phone in a bowl of water. So, I don't know about you, but I often get shocked out of my sleep, as opposed to gently waking up and thinking, what am I inspired by today?
Yeah.
Yeah. So Leanne, can you talk a little bit about diet? Let's go first to plant-based diet, the challenge. What does that mean? Is that vegan? Is that vegetarian? Is that something else?
Yeah. So when we, to answer that question, when we started lifestyle medicine at Spectrum Health, we started with culinary medicine, which is like food is medicine, but in a very approachable way. So we really started that program almost 5.5 years ago. And our headquarters right now is for those of you joining from Grand Rapids, Michigan, is in the second floor of the Downtown Market Teaching Kitchen. Part of our programming each year is to kick off the new year with a plant-powered challenge. And it is timed at the beginning of a year because a lot of times, like we're talking about, a lot of times we do enter the new year excited for some change and for some healthier habits in the new year, healthier behaviors. But we try to structure it in a way that will really set people up for success for the whole year in their lifetime. And so what plant powered means is eating more whole food, plant-based items, less out of a box, reducing some of that animal protein or those inflammatory foods, but it's not about becoming vegan or only eating plants. It's really structured to meet people, not shockingly, right, with where they're ready to start. And we have some folks that have been eating more plants, eating more whole foods, that will use it as an opportunity for it to be like the all-in moment. But most people who join the Plant Powered Challenge are really experimenting and just trying to learn more. They're curious. How can I, start having some meals not include cheese and animal products? How can I squeeze in more, plants and fruits and veggies, and in a way maybe that my kids or my husband or my family will be receptive? So it's really just about learning and experimenting with adding more, whole foods, things that don't come in a box.
Okay. To put you on the spot, but you did say that your diet is pretty, it's a positive habit now that you don't have to think too much about. Is that right?
Yes.
What would you say to someone like me that for whom this concept is new? Like, what are some really easy recipes, or it doesn't even have to be a recipe, but just something that you think could be an easy, low-hanging fruit, so to speak, way to incorporate plants?
Yeah. So it's hard, I'd say, look at what you're already eating and is like, how can you a lot of, and a bit more for, I hate classic example, like eating a salad and greens every single day. And it doesn't have to be like, some people are like, oh yeah, I can do a salad as a meal. For other people, like there's no interest, but like one thing would be like, eat some preferably darker greens, just if you want to get more power and nutrients out of it, like every single day. And whether that's a little side salad, that's a little spinach and something like, just really trying to maybe add to what you're already eating instead of like feeling like you have to like take things away. And so I'd say, and there's like other little things like, all right, do you eat oatmeal every day? Well, can you add some berries? And that's part of what the Plant Powered Challenge, there's lots of free virtual sessions where we try to give ideas that will resonate with lots of different people, right? Because examples for one people are like a no-go for another. So really just thinking about where you currently are and how can you like consistently every day, maybe add something that you won't mind adding. It'll be like a delight. It's a good way to start.
What's your favorite plant-based dish?
Oh, my favorite plant-based dish. Gosh, that's a hard one. I'm gonna say something that's probably gonna be shocking, and I promise, even though none of you know, it's like what my husband made last night for dinner. It's tofu scramble, and I know that like it sounds like what's that? It really resembles eggs, and that was like my one animal product that I was like, how am I going to give up eggs? Like the meat wasn't that difficult, and probably yeah. And like when I was pregnant during my 2 pregnancies, one, I had twins, so I have 3 kids, but like eggs is what I craved. And I was like, oh, this is going to be difficult. And so tofu scramble is not only delicious and like so healthy and like powerhouse of nutrients, it also provides that substitute for me for eggs. And you heard that we had it last night for dinner. So yes, like we often have it for brunch. But last night we had it with toast for dinner, and it's delicious. So it's like tofu crumbled up, so you don't even know like it's tofu, but the flavors are from just like tons of kale. And even though we make it all the time, my boys are always like, they see the pan with like the greens like booming over the pan, but it like shrinks down, right? So you see that like, oh my God, we put all these greens in, but it's shrunk down, but you're still getting the nutrients of all that. And then these amazing like spices that are things that we didn't used to cook with, like nutritional yeast. Have you heard of that term?
Mhm.
Heard of
I
it.
just
Never
did.
used it.
Okay, so I promise I am not the only one. Once you start using it, you will use it every day, and it'll be a staple in your house that you will be like, I cannot run out of that.
Hmm.
Okay. So nutritional yeast and like cumin and paprika and just turmeric. And so all these delicious flavors are in this tofu scramble. So anyway, super healthy. It fills you up, but you don't feel like bloated or gross afterwards. So it's one of my favorite. And it's something that a lot of times when we make, if we're having guests, they're really skeptical, but then they try it and then that's what they want, not the other food.
Is there an actual recipe that your husband uses, or he just throws in there whatever comes to his mind?
Yeah, he at this point, he kind of like makes it. But there's a few different recipes. Which we can,
Do you share one with us so we can post it with our
Yeah,
episode?
absolutely. Absolutely. Happy to. Yeah.
I'm not kidding. I'm going to try it tonight.
Okay, good.
That'd be
Yes.
great.
Yeah,
That'd be
I
great.
will. Yeah.
So as I go into my kitchen, I always struggle because people with metabolic syndrome are told keto or Atkins or at least low carb. But then I hear plant-based. So this is my struggle. Do I eat the fruit or do I eat the cheese? What's clean? What, you hear those terms as well. So Leanne, you want to help us sort through those questions?
Yeah. So I'd say, the classic, like clean is what's not in a box.
Okay.
And I don't know if you've heard of Michael Pollan. He's like a food journalist. So he's not a scientist, but he's a journalist. But he has this kind of phrase, eat food, not too much, mostly plants.
Okay.
It kind of like summarizes, right? Like you want to eat food, so real food, and he defines that, I'll steal from him, as something that has 5 or fewer ingredients and all the ingredients you can pronounce. The big thing, not too much. Like oftentimes, especially us in America, have trouble with portion control. And then mostly plants, doesn't have to be only plants. And at our lifestyle medicine team, we like to talk about like animal products too, as transitioning from like center stage to your condiment.
Okay.
So like, right. So you can think about that even with carbs. And yes, if someone has a metabolic condition or diabetes, my husband does. So I live that, alongside him. And we are both at this point, though it took many years, whole food plant-based. And my husband will eat brown rice or quinoa, but it's not center, like it's not the main part, right? So he is mindful. He has to be. You have to be mindful of carbs. Like anyone that says that would just be lying, but carbs are not like evil, as some folks make it out to be. And so you definitely have to be mindful if you're managing conditions, particularly ones with insulin resistance, but there's you definitely can incorporate, especially whole foods that have carbs. So sweet potatoes are a great example. Like let's choose that over like an Idaho potato if we're have some metabolic condition, and let's not eat sweet potatoes 5 times throughout the day, but let's have that as part of a well-rounded, mostly whole food meal and be absolutely fine. And really the big concern are usually the Doritos and the Cheez-Its and those sources of carbs that, as we know, aren't helping us be healthier. Yeah.
But if I explain that to my kids, it's not sweet potatoes with butter and brown sugar all over them. It is pure potato, right?
It is, but again, you can add lots of like spices, cinnamon and nutmeg, and to season them. And again, it's all about starting where you're at. So if you're, if there's viewers whose kids have like never touched a sweet potato, yeah, maybe you start with a sweet potato fry. Be like, oh, not so bad. Dip in ketchup, right? And yeah, for the holidays, maybe you make a casserole. And what we find with these recipes is we can usually dial way back the butter and the brown sugar on top. But are there ways that we can add just a little bit? Like we take it as a journey and we get our taste buds acclimated to the food, curious about the food, interested in the food. And we're at the point now that we'll like cube them up and put some spices on, and there's not butter or brown sugar. But a few years ago, our holidays definitely included more like a sweet potato casserole that had more of that, higher fat or sugar. So kind of start from where you are.
Okay.
That's so funny that you said maybe not 5 times a day, because I was reading about what are good replacements for things like cheese and potatoes. which are everyone's favorite in my house, and sweet potatoes came up. So no one else would eat it. So I ate sweet potatoes for like 3 meals in a row yesterday. So that's frowned upon. That's what you're saying.
I was just being, exaggeratory, but listen, it makes me not to like jump back, but Gwen, another thing too, that like throwing some black beans on the sweet potato for those with like a metabolic condition, right? Because then the fiber and the protein balances out the healthy carb, and Liz, what you just said too, like cheese, especially our patients at our lifestyle medicine practice, like cheese is a big deal. A lot of folks are, love cheese and cannot imagine giving it up. So again, that's another thing that's a journey, but that food I mentioned, nutritional yeast, is a great substitute for cheese. So
I wrote that down. I heard that from somebody else, actually, a friend who said she cooks with it all the time. So I'll give that a try tonight in the tofu scramble.
Yes. Or when you make, I don't know, you go to build your own pizza place, or you make pizza at home, get sauce, ask for sauce on it, and you just like sprinkle nutritional yeast all over it like it's the cheese, and you have that like flavor without all the, inflammation and fat that's in the cheese.
All right. I'm getting some nutritional yeast.
Me too.
I'm happy to take notes.
On popcorn, I mean, it's literally one of those things that like you can put on anything.
Okay, deal.
That's where I heard it, actually. She eats it on popcorn, my friend. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
We're going to give it a try.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. We're about at time. Any final questions, Liz?
This has been really, actually really inspiring. I feel the most highest level of motivation I feel like I have in weeks. So thanks, Leanne.
Yeah. Well, and Liz, I invite you to join the Plant Power Challenge. I know Gwen already has. And even though the health system is located here in Michigan, it's global. So you can invite family and friends from around the country, around the globe. It's free. We have almost 2,000 people registered, and it's still a couple of weeks before it kicks off. So, and it's truly about, like you're saying, was like being inspired. And we have sessions on like raising a plant-based family, or on, how can you use whole food plants to help with chronic disease? And it's not about like going all the way or becoming vegan. It's really about these small little, like, what are some of these little substitutions or things I can try that you just kind of, take some steps, dip your toes in.
I'm in. Is there a link?
Yeah, we'll share it.
Okay, great.
And when does it start, Leanne?
It starts January 2nd. So it's through the month of January. The sessions are recorded. So as long as you register, if you can't watch live, you can watch later. And in fact, one of our virtual book clubs we'll be doing is on the book Mastering Diabetes, because that is such a common, so many, individuals do suffer with diabetes or at risk for diabetes. So that'll be one of the, not the only, but one of the focal points too is, how can we use whole foods and plants to help with preventing or managing or even reversing diabetes.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much for your time. So you're going to get us a recipe.
Yes.
We're going to get the link to the Plant Power Challenge.
Yep. Yep.
Any final comments, Leanne?
No, just happy holidays, happy new year. And go in. I guess I'll just end with saying, like, go in with small changes that you can sustain and keep up. And knocking those small changes out of the park are going to help build up our confidence. And then, we'll just naturally be kind of, stretching the goal as we walk into the new year rather than diving in.
Great. Thank you. Happy holidays, everybody.
Yeah.